hidden seal. Welcome to the channel.
What have power and fear erased from history so that you believe the version you were told? Have you ever wondered why Africa, the cradle of humanity, has been conveniently silenced in the great books of faith? What if I told you that the Bible you know is actually an incomplete shadow of a much older, more powerful and dangerous wisdom? For centuries, an explosive truth has been buried beneath the desert. These are the Seven Forbidden Scrolls, texts that reveal a cosmology, a concept of God, and an origin of man that challenge every pillar of official history. They prove that Mosaic law was born in African temples, that angels came from the cosmos, and that divine wisdom was originally feminine. This is not just history, it is a spiritual revelation. It is the key to your own sovereignty. Prepare to unearth the true foundation of faith. Immerse yourself in this ancient journey with us. Leave a like if the thirst for truth moves you, subscribe so you don't miss the next revelations, and comment on which part of the world you are hearing the echo of this sacred secret from. In the beginning, when the world was still crawling in its youth, the Nile was not just a river. It was the artery of knowledge, pulsing in the heart of Kemet. Imagine a light so ancient that it eclipses even the brilliance of the stars. It was the Library of Alexandria, a sanctuary of scrolls where the map of the human soul and the secret of the gods were kept. The mystery lies not in what was written, but in what was intentionally erased from official history. The night the flames devoured that vast wisdom, they burned not only paper, but centuries of revelations about creation and morality. What remained? Only the version that would serve the purposes of those who wielded power. Legend says that, before the fire licked the pillars, initiated priests wrapped the most sacred texts in clay jars and buried them under the hot sand, beginning a journey of silence and waiting. This wisdom did not die, it merely lay dormant, traveling through time via secret lineages, awaiting the right moment to awaken. The spiritual unfolding of this tragedy is our current quest. Each forgotten legend, each banished symbol, is a fragment of that great library that tries to regroup in our spirit. The true treasure is not the pyramids, but the conviction that history is cyclical and that truth, like water, always finds its way to the surface. Therefore, what was burned on that tragic night was not just a book, but a crucial question. What did humanity lose by allowing fear to rewrite its faith? The answer begins to be whispered on the winds, and it leads us to the heart of the spiritual conflict that divided the world. There was a time when divinity was seen as nature itself, present, dual, and accessible to all. Faith was not dogma, but rather a spiritual science based on the balance between the masculine and the feminine, heaven and earth. However, this integrated vision represented a threat to the order that was being established in the world, an order that needed a single, distant, and wrathful God to control humanity. The Great Schism, then, was not a geological event, but rather a spiritual trauma, when the lightning bolt of institutional power cracked the ancestral temple. On one side remained the domesticated version of history, easy to swallow and impose. On the other, the forbidden, wild, and free knowledge that affirmed that the divine resided within each of us. At that very moment, the sacred text fragmented. Secret sects and cults, scattered across the desert fringes and hidden jungles of Africa, took custody of the banished portion, reciting its verses by the light of bonfires and engraving its symbols on discreet amulets. It was spiritual resistance in action, ensuring that the breath of truth would not be extinguished. This is where the deepest spiritual unfolding lies. Forbidden knowledge teaches us that the concept of sin was often an invention to distance us from our innate power. Gnosis, direct knowledge, was the path. Maintaining access to the divine as an exclusive mystery for the few was the great project of control that was beginning. This separation shaped the world as we know it, creating barriers between faith and wisdom. But you see, history never hides itself very well. Just look at the map with different eyes to realize that traces of Africa, the cradle of this banished knowledge, are everywhere, especially where the desert meets the first garden. To understand Eden, we must first look at the Nile Valley, the region where chaos gave way to order and where civilization itself took its first steps. Our ancestors did not see Genesis as a distant tale, but rather as a vivid memory, a geographical and spiritual map of a fertile land where the union between man and the divine was complete. The mystery here is that this Eden, far from being a garden located in the Middle East as tradition teaches, was actually a complex of advanced, pre-dynastic cultures that extended across Kemet and Nubia. The pyramids, far from being mere tombs, were machines of ascension, connecting points that mapped the stars, proving that these people mastered the architecture of the cosmos. The symbolic journey leads us to follow the flow of the Nile, ascending from the delta to its secret sources, discovering that each bend in the river was a portal to different levels of initiation and wisdom. It was on this journey that the great masters, who would later be called prophets, sought primordial knowledge, learning about immortality before it was promised by any religion. Spiritual unfolding reveals that knowledge of symbols, sacred mathematics, and cosmic harmony flourished there. They understood that paradise was not a place to be reached after death, but a state of consciousness that manifested on earth through the order of Ma'at. This cradle of light, which many have tried to forget, is the true starting point. It shows us that the foundation of faith and knowledge is not in the West, but firmly rooted in African soil. And it is precisely in this ancestral sand that we find the first clue about the artifacts that have preserved these truths throughout the centuries. Somewhere between the scorching desert and the promise of the savannah, Timbuktu rose as a beacon of scholarship. It was not merely a center for the trade of gold and salt. It was a vast intellectual Noah's Ark, guarding manuscripts that rewrote the chronology of the world. The sight of a scribe, bent under the dim light, dedicating his life to preserving these words, is the very image of silent resistance. The great mystery of these leather codices is their very existence and survival against oblivion. They speak not only of mathematics or Islamic jurisprudence. Between the lines, they tell stories of prophets who, long before becoming figures of a single tradition, walked through African temples, exchanging wisdom with masters and initiates. The symbolic journey that these texts represent is the crossing of knowledge across the Sahara. From hand to hand, from dune to dune, they traveled, protected by families and lineages who understood that this knowledge was more valuable than any gold nugget. They became living proof that the African continent not only absorbed but also generated high philosophy. Spiritually, the Timbuktu Codex reveals the theology of interconnectedness. It shows that the roots of belief, whether Christian, Islamic, or Jewish, intertwine in a common ground of ancestral African wisdom. It challenges the idea that Africa was merely a receiver, proving that it was, in fact, an inexhaustible source of enlightenment. But what these manuscripts truly whisper is a powerful truth about time, that linear history is an illusion. They invite us to dig deeper into the sands of Egypt and Nubia, for what we find there, in the secret scrolls, challenges everything we have been taught about the origin of good and evil. In 1945, in the heart of Upper Egypt, near the city of Nag Hammadi, an accidental discovery by a farmer searching for fertilizer revealed a treasure that would shake official history. It consisted of 13 papyrus codices bound in clay jars, texts that had been silenced for over 15 centuries, carrying with them the burden and the glory of Gnostic knowledge. The great mystery of these codices is that they offer a completely different version of the nature of God, man, and salvation. For the Gnostics, divinity was not a punitive judge, but a source of light from which the human spirit was exiled. The key to its return was not blind faith, but rather gnosis, the intimate and direct knowledge of the divine that resided in every being. This symbolic journey proposed by Gnostics is one of self-discovery. The true temple to be purified is not made of stone, but one's own body, and salvation is not given, but conquered through the awakening of consciousness. It is a philosophy that reclaims individual sovereignty, removing power from the priestly elite and placing it in the hands of those who truly seek the truth. Spiritually, what these texts reveal is that the concept of original sin has been widely distorted. For them, the serpent in the Garden of Eden was not a demon, but rather an emissary of wisdom, encouraging Adam and Eve to obtain the knowledge that would make them gods. Evil, in fact, was ignorance, the sleep of the soul. The discovery of Nag Hammadi, although geographically close to the Middle East, has its spirit rooted in African ancestry, in the search for order, ma'at, through wisdom. They are physical proof that knowledge was buried, but not destroyed, leaving us with the question, what other truths about creation await us in the texts that the Church most feared? Among the deserts of Ethiopia, where the mountains hold secrets older than the sands, exists a canonical text for a single nation, the Book of Enoch, preserved in its entirety only in African tradition. This is not a historical footnote, but a complete revelation about the primordial interactions between heaven and earth long before the biblical flood. The central mystery of this text is the identity of the Watchers, or fallen angels. Far from being mere rebels, they are described as celestial beings who descended of their own free will to teach humanity forbidden secrets: metallurgy, astrology, cosmetics, and the art of war. This knowledge, although it accelerated human development, was considered blasphemy by the higher order, resulting in chaos and the need for global purification. The symbolic journey that Enoch undertakes is one of ascension and initiation. He is taken to the celestial realms, where he witnesses the architecture of the universe and divine justice, serving as a bridge between humans and these powerful beings. This narrative reflects the role of the shaman and the African priest as an intermediary and guardian of knowledge that transcends the material dimension. Spiritually, the African Book of Enoch sheds new light on the origin of evil and technology. It suggests that science and magic did not come from a gradual development of humanity, but were a gift from superior beings, revealing that our history is not one of slow ascent, but of a dramatic fall from advanced knowledge. Unlike other texts that seek to close the door to mystery, Enoch throws it wide open. He makes us question, what else has this tradition, which remained isolated and resilient in East Africa, preserved about the gods and demons that were conveniently removed from Western scriptures? We now delve into the heart of Egyptian cosmogony, where creation was not an isolated act of a single entity, but a powerful manifestation of energies in constant dance. The papyri dedicated to Adam and Ra, the sun gods, tell an origin story that predates any monotheistic narrative, revealing a divinity that is, in its essence, dual and complete. The great mystery of these texts lies in the conception of creation as an act of self-manifestation, where feminine and masculine energies separated from the primordial unity. Adam, the being who created himself on the initial mound, generated the first gods, Shu and Tefnut, through a kiss or his own breath. This destroys the idea of a solitary creator and establishes sacred duality at the center of existence. The symbolic journey proposed to us is that of the solar cycle, where Ra, the sun, dies each night and is reborn each morning, symbolizing the eternity of the soul and the promise of resurrection. It was a profoundly optimistic belief. Death was not an end, but a passage to the reunion with the light, a certainty that permeated all of society. Spiritually, the worship of these solar deities teaches us to respect the power of cycles and balance. Divinity, according to the ancestral African vision, is immanent. It is contained in fire, water, air, and the earth itself. There is no need to look for a god in the sky when he pulsates in every beat of your heart and in every ray of sunshine. This worldview, with its profound reverence for the feminine and cyclical power, was one of the first bodies of knowledge to be actively distorted by the conquerors, who needed a centralized and distant father god. But the flame of the sun of Kemet never truly went out. It merely changed form, awaiting a people in West Africa who would keep it alive in the night sky. Hidden in the steep cliffs of Mali, a people have preserved a wisdom that defies logic and chronology, the Dogon. They have no access to modern telescopes, but their ancestral tales describe with astonishing accuracy the existence of Sirius B, a white dwarf star invisible to the naked eye, revealing a science that should be impossible for them. The mystery of these tales lies in their origin. How could an isolated people in the interior of Africa possess such advanced astronomical knowledge about a complex star system? Dogon legend claims that this wisdom was transmitted to them by the Nammos, aquatic, amphibious beings who came from the Sirius system. They were the true instructors of humanity, the emissaries of starlight. The symbolic journey of the Dogon is that of a silent guardian. They clung to this cosmology, preserving it through complex rituals and sacred masks, protecting it from external influences and cultural invasion. Their persistence is proof that the history of human science is not linear and that Africa held stellar keys that the West ignored. Spiritually, this revelation connects us to the concept that life is not merely earthly. It suggests a cosmic connection, an ancestral exchange between Earth and other celestial abodes. For the Dogon, the heavens are not empty. They are populated by advanced ancestors who, in the past, walked among humankind to guide their awakening. These tales from West Africa are a vivid reminder. If official history denies us Africa's intelligence regarding our own Earth, what about its knowledge of the stars? The next secret, lying within the pyramids and temples, shows how this celestial knowledge was applied by one of the greatest prophets the world has ever known. The figure of Moses, the great lawgiver, is firmly etched in religious history, but his childhood and youth remain shrouded in mystery. What tradition often leaves silent is the profound Egyptian, or more precisely, African connection that shaped this prophet, transforming him from a saved baby into a powerful initiate. The historical and spiritual conflict here is clear. The erased texts reveal that Moses was not merely adopted. He was trained not only in letters, but in the royal and esoteric arts of Kemet. He ascended the priestly caste, learning the rites of magic, the cosmology of Ma'at, and the profound moral law that governed life on the Nile long before ascending Mount Sinai. His symbolic journey, therefore, was not that of an oppressed Hebrew who suddenly received the law, but of an initiate who rebelled against tyranny. The Ten Commandments and the Mosaic Code did not arise from nothing. They have direct parallels with the 42 precepts of Ma'at, which were oaths of justice and order practiced by the Egyptians and Nubians millennia ago. Spiritually, this revelation is powerful. It suggests that the basis of Western law and morality was, in fact, imported and adapted from African wisdom. The figure of the Black Pharaoh, whom many occult texts mention as his master or rival, represents the African authority he had to confront, but whose knowledge he absorbed and refined. This is the forbidden connection that tears the veil of history. The foundation of the faith of millions was laid not in an empty desert, but in the libraries and temples of the Nile Valley. But this profound wisdom of Kemet was not solely masculine. A female figure, obscured and distorted, guarded the most intimate secret of Gnosis. The figure of Mary Magdalene was forced to fit the mold of the penitent, the redeemed sinner, an image carefully constructed to diminish the role of women in spirituality. However, in the Gnostic Gospels, preserved in Egypt, she emerges with surprising power and authority. She is not the follower, but the apostle of the apostles, the holder of Gnosis. The mystery surrounding these texts lies in their origin. Some manuscripts suggest that this Mary was, in fact, an initiate of African or Egyptian traditions, a bearer of wisdom that transcended popular preaching. She was the living representative of the sacred feminine principle, Sophia, the divine wisdom that many have tried to banish from the one divinity. Her symbolic journey is that of the silenced priestess. She possessed the deepest teachings, understood the visions and the true nature of the resurrection, but was rejected and slandered by the male disciples, who could not bear to see a woman as the principal guardian of the revelation. Her gospel is a cry of resistance against spiritual misogyny. Spiritually, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene reveals that the path to the divine is not through intermediaries, but rather through the inner search for knowledge. It teaches us that true union with the Creator is a personal and mystical experience, not an adherence to external rules. Divine wisdom has been feminized, and the key to free spirituality has tragically been buried with it. This revelation about sacred feminine power is a blow to the control structure that has dominated faith for centuries. History has tried to erase it, but the image of the wise woman, the teacher, continues to shine, connecting to an ancestral African symbol that encapsulates eternal life in a way that the cross cannot. While the modern world clings to the cross as the ultimate symbol of sacrifice and redemption, ancient Egypt and Nubia knew a far more primal and potent way of representing eternal life: the Ankh. This key of life, with its oval loop at the top, spoke not of death, but of the very essence of immortality and the power of creation. The mystery of the Ankh lies in its symbolic composition. The upper loop represents the rising sun and the sphere of the spirit. The vertical bar is the path of ascension, the link between heaven and earth, and the horizontal bar is the union of opposites, of the masculine and the feminine. It is the perfect formula for continuous life and reincarnation, a concept that predates Christianity. The symbolic journey of the Ankh leads us directly to initiation and passage rituals. It was the key that the gods offered to the pharaoh or the initiate to open the doors to the afterlife, a talisman that ensured that the Ka, life force, and the Ba, soul, would survive physical death and reach eternity in the fields of Yer. Spiritually, the Ankh reveals the African belief in the afterlife. Resurrection was not a one-time event, but a natural cycle. They understood that death was merely a transition to another state of being, and the Ankh was the tool to navigate this transition, expressing a deep understanding of the vital energy that sustains us. In studying the Ankh, we realize that ancestral African spirituality already possessed the answer to the greatest of human questions: how to live forever. But how was this complex knowledge transmitted? The answer was hidden in dark chambers, where silence guarded the initiation rites. True wisdom was never written in public squares or preached in marketplaces. It was whispered in the shadows, reserved for those who proved worthy of carrying it. The rite of secret initiation was the beating heart of the mystery schools of Egypt and Nubia, a transformative process aimed at molding the common man into an enlightened being. The mystery was not the knowledge itself, but the experience of acquiring it. The initiate underwent a rigorous period of isolation and testing, subjected to psychological, physical, and spiritual trials that simulated death and rebirth. It was a symbolic journey to the underworld, where he was confronted with his own shadows in order to emerge purified. This symbolic journey of descent and ascent had a practical and spiritual purpose. It ensured that esoteric knowledge, the power to manipulate the forces of nature and understand cosmology, fell into the hands of individuals of unwavering character and morals. The rite served as a filter, protecting wisdom against ambition and corruption. Spiritually, initiation represented the crucial difference between imposed faith and acquired knowledge. By undergoing the rite, the initiate not only believed in sacred truths, he experienced them, he made them part of his being. This took power away from external priests, as man became his own temple, his own intercessor. As the church consolidated its power, it needed to abolish these mysteries, replacing direct experience with dogma and blind obedience. But the echo of these rituals remained, hidden in the practices of powerful kingdoms to the south, whose leaders did not bow to Rome, but rather to their own divine lineage. Far from the attention of Rome and Cairo, where the Nile bends most forcefully, flourished the kingdom of Kush, and at its heart, the city of Meroë. This civilization, ruled by a lineage of fierce queen mothers, the Kandakes, was a true beacon of African resistance and guarded scrolls with a narrative that Europe preferred to ignore. The great mystery of these scrolls is the proof that political and spiritual power in Africa was not necessarily patriarchal. The Kandakes were figures of unquestionable authority, warrior queens who defied Roman rule and who, in their texts, celebrated female strength as the earthly manifestation of divinity. The symbolic journey of Meroë is that of unconquered sovereignty. While the north was absorbed by Greco-Roman influence, the kingdom of Kush kept alive the Meroitic script, its own gods, such as Apidmak, the lion god, and a rich tradition of pyramids steeper and more numerous than those of Egypt. They were the guardians of the original civilization, pure in their ancestry. Spiritually, Meroë reveals that African religion was inseparable from national identity and political resistance. Faith in the Kandakes was faith in the divine feminine power that guaranteed the prosperity and protection of the kingdom. Her texts are a manifesto against subjugation, proving that Africa was not merely an object of history, but its protagonist. By silencing Meroë, Western history attempted to erase the image of a powerful Black Africa, capable of confronting and defeating empires. But the legacy of these queens leads us to an even more explosive truth, preserved in an Ethiopian text, which directly connects this lineage to one of the world's greatest relics. With the rise of great empires and the consolidation of state monotheistic doctrines, ancestral African knowledge came to be seen as heresy, witchcraft, or paganism to be eradicated. The persecution was not only physical, it was a relentless cultural and spiritual war aimed at imposing the great silence on ancient truths. The mystery here is how the entirety of knowledge was not lost. Faced with the threat, the guardians, whether Ethiopian monks in Aksum or Dogon priests in Mali, transformed isolated caves and monasteries into arks of knowledge, hiding precious manuscripts in hard-to-reach places, as if the mountain itself were their protector. The symbolic journey of this persecution is that of the internal diaspora, where knowledge had to become nomadic, traveling secretly in oral dialects, in work songs, or disguised in folk tales. Knowledge became a code, an encrypted language that only the initiated could decipher, ensuring that its essence survived fire and sword. Spiritually, this period teaches us the resilience of faith. What could not be practiced openly was internalized and transformed into personal devotion, into secret rites performed under the moonlight or in the privacy of homes. The survival of these texts and practices is the miracle of human persistence against cultural erasure. This imposed silence, however, failed to break ancestral ties. No matter how much they tried to isolate Africa, the continent has always been at the center of the spiritual and political map, and a sacred text, venerated by an African kingdom, would prove its undeniable connection to the core of the Judeo-Christian faith. In the highlands and mountains of Ethiopia, where Christian faith has blended with deep Jewish roots, there exists a sacred text that serves as the spiritual constitution of the nation, the Kebra Nagast. This is not a mere tale, but a document that establishes the Ethiopian royal lineage as the rightful heir of David and Solomon, and makes an explosive historical claim. The central mystery of the Kebra Nagast is its assertion that the Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred relic of Judaism, is not in Israel, but rather kept with devotion in a temple in the Ethiopian city of Aksum. The text narrates how Menelik I, the son of the Queen of Sheba, Makeda, and King Solomon, brought the Ark to Ethiopia, making the nation the new and true Zion. The symbolic journey here is the migration of holiness. The Kebra Nagast shifts the focus of the biblical story, moving the center of power and the continuity of the messianic lineage from the Middle East to Africa. It proves that the Queen of Sheba was not merely a visitor, but a crucial figure who united African wisdom with the legacy of the people of Israel. Spiritually, this revelation is a powerful blow against the Eurocentric narrative of religious history. It establishes Ethiopia, an African kingdom, as the guardian of the most potent relic of monotheism, conferring upon it a historical and spiritual authority that the outside world has been reluctant to acknowledge. The Kebra Nagast shows us that the ties between Africa and sacred stories are undeniable and profound. But if the Nile was connected to Jerusalem, what other links existed that crossed oceans, uniting the wisdom of Kemet with the lands that rose in the New World? When we observe the monumental structures that dot the planet, from the pyramids of Giza to the vast constructions in Teotihuacan or Chichen Itza, we are forced to confront an architectural coincidence that defies geography and official history. The similarities in construction techniques and the stellar alignment between Egypt, Nubia, and Mesoamerica are too striking to be mere coincidences. The mystery lies in the question of diffusion. Are these constructions proof of a transatlantic exchange far older than we have been told, or a manifestation of universal knowledge taught to humanity at its dawn? The pyramidal shape, this sacred geometry, points to a time when knowledge was global and not compartmentalized by oceans. The symbolic journey that the pyramids represent is one of ascension and awareness. They are not just buildings, they are cosmic diagrams, constructed to channel energies and serve as stellar calendars. This shared wisdom proves that African and American ancestors shared the same profound understanding of the architecture of the universe and celestial alignment. Spiritually, what these structures reveal to us is that the Earth was once seen as a vast, interconnected temple. Sacred mathematics and astrology were not superstition, but rather the science of living in harmony with the cosmos. The great mysteries of life were the same, whether on the banks of the Nile or in the jungles of Yucatan. What was forbidden in official history was not only contact, but the idea that intelligence and advanced technology could have flourished on continents other than Europe. But African wisdom was not limited to stone. It also manifested itself in a philosophy of life that revered nature in an unparalleled way. For the Yoruba people, and for millions in the diaspora, the knowledge of life is not contained in a single bound book, but rather in a vast system of divination and oral wisdom called Ifa. This Book of Nature is a compendium of verses and stories that maps the creation, morality, and interconnectedness of all living beings, being the oracle that speaks the language of Olodumare, the Creator. The great mystery that Ifa reveals is the origin of the Orishas. They are not distant gods, but rather manifestations of the primary forces of nature: thunder, fresh water, iron, wind. Ifa teaches us that the divine is immanent, residing in every river, in every storm, and in every falling leaf, making nature the true altar where humankind finds its purpose. The symbolic journey of Ifa is the search for Ori, the head or destiny. Through consultation with the oracle, the individual discovers the path their soul chose before birth, providing moral and spiritual guidance to align earthly life with their cosmic mission. This philosophy restores to humankind the power to be a co-creator of their own reality. Spiritually, the Ifa chant is the forbidden text that survived slavery and persecution, hidden in the Americas under the guise of Catholic saints. It teaches us that harmony with the world is not a luxury, but a spiritual necessity. The body is a microcosm of the universe, and respect for nature is respect for the Creator himself. This wisdom, which sees the universe as a network of vibrant energies, is the opposite of the vision of a separate God. And it is the testimony of the survival of this ancestral knowledge that leads us to question: if this truth has withstood centuries of oppression, what else is the earth ready to give us? Archaeology, often presented as an objective science, is in fact a battleground where official history struggles to keep its narrative intact. Excavations in various parts of Africa and the Americas have revealed artifacts and skeletons whose dating and technological complexity openly contradict the accepted chronology, forcing historians to confront what we call out-of-place discoveries. The mystery lies not in what is found, but in what is systematically silenced after its discovery. Findings that point to African civilizations that mastered metal smelting and writing much earlier than previously thought, or structures that required advanced engineering knowledge, are often reclassified, ignored, or even hidden away in museum basements. This symbolic journey of forbidden archaeology is like sand refusing to be silenced. It shows us that the earth is the great archive, the ultimate guardian of truth, and that, despite all efforts to rewrite the past, physical evidence continues to emerge, challenging the chronology that establishes Europe as the sole cradle of civilization. Spiritually, what these findings reveal to us is that our perception of time and progress is flawed. Humanity, in its distant past, may have reached peaks of wisdom and technology that were lost in cataclysms or spiritual wars, and Africa was one of the libraries of that golden age. The truth is literally emerging from the earth, forcing us to reassess who we are and where we come from. But if history is a cycle, how did this ancient truth, which was persecuted and buried, manage to cross the Atlantic and flourish in the faith of an enslaved people? The greatest miracle of ancestral African wisdom was not its creation, but its survival amidst the terror of the transatlantic slave trade. When millions of souls were torn from their lands, faith was not lost. It traveled in the pores of memory, hidden in songs, rhythms, and the very fabric of the souls of the enslaved. The mystery lies in how this spirituality disguised itself. In Brazil, Cuba, and Haiti, the Yoruba Orishas and the Vodans of Dahomey did not disappear. They hid themselves under the guise of Catholic saints, an act of spiritual genius and resistance. This camouflage ensured that the rituals, the philosophy of life, and the knowledge about the forces of nature were practiced in secret. The symbolic journey of the diaspora is one of constant rebirth. In every candomblé temple, in every Vodou house, the forgotten history of Africa is reenacted. The rites and dances are a living library, proof that faith does not depend on parchments, but on bodily memory and oral transmission from generation to generation. Spiritually, The echo of the diaspora reveals the profound resilience and adaptability of the human soul. The essence of Ma'at, of balance, and the interconnectedness of Ifa continued to guide a people who had lost everything except their spirituality. It is this faith that served as a pillar for identity and the struggle for freedom. This living, vibrant, and adaptable legacy shows us that the past is not just a story to be read, but a continuous force that pulsates in the present. But what, ultimately, does this forbidden knowledge have to tell us about the future and our own search for meaning? Africa's true legacy is not just the pyramids or the gold, but rather the understanding that history is a cycle and that truth cannot be permanently imprisoned. The ultimate revelation is that the forbidden manuscripts are not merely ancient texts, they are mirrors reflecting our own search for meaning and spiritual sovereignty in today's world. The ultimate mystery is our own identity. By confronting what has been erased from the Bible and official history, we are forced to recognize that the foundation of our morality and spirituality is far broader, more plural, and undeniably African at its deepest roots. This liberates us from the narrative of a punitive God and connects us to the vision of a creator who is the very force of life and balance. This symbolic journey, from burned papyri to songs of the diaspora, teaches us that ancestral wisdom is not merely a museum piece. It is the key to resolving present-day conflicts. It shows us that respect for nature, the pursuit of gnosis, and the valuing of the feminine are more than ideas. They are the essence of cosmic order, Ma'at. Spiritually, the outcome is a call to personal authority. You don't need permission to seek the truth. It resides in your ancestral memory, waiting to be awakened. Forbidden knowledge is, in fact, liberating knowledge, restoring to the individual the power to be their own priest and to understand divinity through direct experience. Therefore, the past is not dead. It echoes in every dancing orisha, in every Gnostic line that has withstood the test of time. The question is not whether history will change, but rather, will you continue to read only what has been permitted, or will you have the courage to unearth the secrets that sleep in your own soul? And so, the journey through the 7 forbidden manuscripts comes to an end. Not as an end, but as a new dawn for your own consciousness. We have seen that truth, my friends, is not a straight line, but a cycle that leads us back to Africa, where law and light were born. The spiritual heritage of this continent is not one of darkness or ignorance, but of a profound gnosis that celebrates the balance between heaven and earth, the masculine and the feminine. For a long time, they tried to convince us that faith resided in the books that burned, but it was, in fact, in those who fanned the embers of memory, the guardians of ancestral tales. The African legacy is the resilience of the soul, proof that the divine resides in the pulse of nature and that you are the heir to the most ancient secrets. Official history tried to steal your identity, but the lost scrolls are back, shouting that you are a descendant of kingdoms of light. The sands of time, you see, hold many other mysteries. Entire civilizations still sleep beneath the dunes, and the knowledge of Ma'at continues to guide those who dare to awaken. Their quest for truth has only just begun. If you felt touched by the echo of this ancient prophecy and wish to unearth more forbidden secrets, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. The history of the world is much greater than we have been told, and today's silence is merely an invitation to the next revelation. Until the next secret is revealed, may the wisdom of the ancestors guide you.